Good evening. I'll now call the Finance and Responsible Governance Committee meeting to order. It is 4:03 p.m. This meeting is being held in person and electronically in accordance with the Municipal Act pursuant to procedural bylaws 2019-100 as amended. I am changing the order of business to bring forward item 7.1, the 2023 audited consolidated financial statements for inclusion with item 3, the presentation. For consent items, I'll read out the title associated with the recommended motions printed on the agenda to see if members of committee would like to deal with them on consent or hold them for discussion. Items that are not held will be deemed approved by consent with no further discussion. They will then move forward to the next general committee meeting for consideration. We have no public meetings, no open delegations. And we're moving into item 3, presentations by staff, officers, agents of the corporation. There is one presentation on the agenda this afternoon from Deloitte concerning the 2023 audit. Do you want to go back? Okay. We will hold that. Thank you. Thank you. So we are going to go into item 5, deferred or referred items. There are 4 deferred referred items on our agenda this evening. The first item is motion 23G 277, referral by General Committee on November 29th, 2023, regarding a circulation memo concerning This Week in Barrie, the legislative ads in Barrie today.
Hold, please.
Thank you. Held by Deputy Mayor Thompson. 5.2, a referred motion 24G-118 at General Committee on May 8th, 2024 regarding correspondence concerning site plan applications 55 to 57 McDonald Street, 61 to 67 Owen Street, and 70 to 76 Worsley Street.
Hold, please.
Held by Deputy Mayor Thompson. Item 5.3, referred by motion 24G-119 at General Committee on May the 8th, 2024. This is regarding correspondence concerning a new lawn chair Luminata concert series.
Hold, please.
Held, Deputy Mayor Thompson. You're on a roll. That's a trend now because that's 3. Item number 5.4, referred motion 24G-120 at General Committee on May the 8th, 2024.
Hold, please.
Thank you. So Mayor Nuttall has held the item concerning Shack's World proposal for city budget support. Okay, starting from the top. 6.1 as well. Thank you. So we have reported the advisory committees. 2 reports are coming forward to be received. 6.1 reported the investment board committee dated April 18th, 2024. That is approved on consent. 6.2 reported the international relations committee dated May 7th, 2024. No holds, so that's moving forward on consent. Just to the clerk for process, do you want me to go back to the items that were held? Thank you. So as identified prior, we've moved the presentation forward. So now we move into a presentation this evening from Deloitte concerning the 2023 audit report. Shall I like to you, Mr. Miller?
Thank you. So through you, Chairman Kungle tonight, yes, sir. Yes, I'd like to introduce Lillian Chung from Deloitte. She's the new audit partner that's taken over the City of Barrie file, and I'll pass it over to her.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Miller. Good evening to the committee. My name is Lillian Chung. I'm an audit partner with Deloitte. I know I'm a new face to you, but very happy to be here. As a bit of history, I had previously been involved with the audit of the City of Barrie about 5 to 6 years ago. So really happy to rejoin the audit team and to lead it this year as your audit partner. Thanks for allowing me the opportunity to be here today to share with you the results of our audit, which would have been included within your package today. I will go through at a fairly high level in summary on the results of our audit. As the committee will recall, back in December of 2023, we presented our annual audit plan to you, and at that point outlined to you a few things as it relates to our audit planning. We had shared at that time our audit materiality, which will drive the extent of our audit testing, as well as the key audit risk areas, which we will be focusing on as part of our audit. We're happy to report at this time that our audit is substantially complete, and as well that it was executed as we had intended as part of our audit plan that was presented to you back in December. In our audit results report, you'll see a few items that I want to draw to the committee's attention. The first being that we have no uncorrected misstatements to report. So as part of our responsibilities as your auditors, we're required to report to the committee any uncorrected misstatements above a material amount that we determine as our clearly trivial threshold. This report is incredibly clean in that there are no uncorrected misstatements to report at all. So this really is a very good report card for finance management. You'll also notice as part of the audit results report that we have reported back to you on the outcomes of our testing in the 3 audit risk areas that we had previously highlighted. The 3 areas are revenue recognition, management override of internal controls, as well as the implementation of 2 new accounting standards this year that we felt would be of more importance to the committee, given that they do have some impact on the financial reporting and the presentation of the financial statements this year. These can be found in your package under the audit risk section of our audit results report. All 3 of these areas, we're very happy to report there are no findings or misstatements to report to you. Of particular note as it relates to the implementation of the new accounting standards, the committee will find that in the draft financial statements that were included in your package as well, that there is a new note disclosure this year in financial statements note 2, specifically outlining the impact of the adoption of the new accounting standards, one of which is asset retirement obligations, which was a standard that required a very significant uplift from management, as well as the financial instrument standards, which was a little bit simpler, but also similarly required additional effort. So I do want to make sure that I recognize the cooperation as well as the preparedness of management in addressing both of these new standards. They did require significant new effort, so I do want to applaud them for achieving a clean result. You will see also as part of our audit results report that we did identify a few outstanding items prior to us finalizing the audited financial statements. All of these items are housekeeping in nature and must be completed only upon the approval of the financial statements. And we're happy to report that we're prepared to complete all of these items and to issue a clean audit opinion once the financial statements are approved. So with that, that's really all I wanted to present as it relates to our audit findings report, but happy to take any questions that there may be from the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Chung. Any questions from members of committee? Not seeing any. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Corser.
Hi, thank you. Through you, Chair, I guess I'd be directing this probably more to staff. It's a little off topic, I guess, but on page 5, I saw that there was a significant difference between post-employment benefits liabilities from 2023 to 2022. And I was wondering, and I saw further in our cram for exam homework we had this week that it might have something to do with waste management. I was just wondering if I guess it would be directed to Mr. Miller.
If I could just ask, sorry, was that within the staff report you're asking on the financial statements?
No, it's for the Deloitte's, and I guess we can say that question for take it offline, I guess. I thought you might
Oh,
have
we
had
can answer. I'm just trying to zero in. It's on the
on the
presentation that was just given, or?
Yes, with the page 5. I believe it was a presentation that was just given, the Deloitte affiliate, is it? Yep.
And perhaps I can speak to that actually as a start, if that would help.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So I believe the question relates to the post-employment benefits liability, which did increase from 104 million to 134 million in the current year. So as the committee may know, on an every few years basis, there is a full actuarial valuation conducted on the post-employment benefits liabilities that represents future benefits to be provided to employees based on past service. So whenever there is a full actuarial valuation, there is an update on all of the assumptions that are used as part of the valuation of this liability. This liability is not like an invoice that is payable. It's based on a lot of actuarial assumptions. And so whenever there is a full valuation, there is necessarily a fluctuation. So the increase here is reflective of the fact that this year was a full valuation year. And as we would expect in a full valuation year, there's always a little bit of a pickup in terms of the true up of liability. The other nuance that we do want to raise is that in the current year, the city actually changed actuaries. So different actuaries may have slightly different methodologies that they used in estimating the actuarial liability relating to post-employment benefits. So I think there was a bit of a double effect of both the fact that it's a full actuarial valuation year, as well as the fact that there was a change in actuary this year. And they did use slightly different methodologies in computing certain of the liabilities. So that does result in an increase in the current year.
Thank you, Ms. Chung. I'll look to Mr. Miller for any follow-up or additions.
Yeah, and just to try and explain it a little, just so you're understanding it, it's an accrual for this year, but it's really reflective of perpetuity in the future. So it's post-period benefits for the future discounted back to today's value. So it's not that the city owes 134 million today in post-period benefits, but over time, there's a large number. The city's statements are consolidated, so this would include the police's numbers. And a lot of the valuations on post-period benefit, I'm not going to blame all the police, but police and fire services are generally a higher cost. Generally, the city does fund these on an annual basis. We have some money in a reserve, but it's not I just don't want you coming away thinking we owe 134 million today. We don't, but there is a recognition that there will be going forward. And similarly with the asset retirement obligations, it's somewhat of a new standard, but when the landfill does finally close, we do have to continue to pay costs to maintain that land. So it reflects some of that. And then if we have assets that we own, like buildings that are, perhaps they have asbestos in them, that sort of things, we have to now estimate a cost of what that is going forward when the day comes when we remove it. So we don't owe 21 million today on post-period assets, but it is a longer term exercise.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any follow-up, Councillor Corser?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions from members of council? Thank you again, Mrs. Chung, and Mr. Miller, to you and your team, if I may, especially considering when standards change and there's additions that comes with its own work on top of what would be, I would imagine, a very complex audit process in general. So thank you for bringing forward a clean audit and your support to that process, to you and the team. So with that, for those that may just be joining us, we did move up item 7.1 that's associated to this topic. So we will be dealing with a motion related to the audited consolidated financial statements. So moving to 7.1, does a member of committee wish to put the motion on the floor?
So moved.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. The motion reads as that the 2023 audited consolidated financial statements attached as Appendix A to the report to the Finance and Responsible Governance Committee dated May 29th, 2024 be received. Are there any questions from members of committee? Seeing none, any questions from members of council in attendance? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Okay, that is everyone. That is carried. So moving back, we are going to items held in consent as we have no items for discussion. I'll check with the clerk if there's any other items that have been repositioned. No. Okay. So the first item that was held under item 5. This was held by Deputy Mayor Thompson. This is regarding motion 23G277. Would you like to put the motion on the floor?
I'll put the motion on the floor as printed and have an amendment.
Proceed, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. My amendment reads as follows. That further to correspondence on circulation list dated May 29th, 2024, C6 240529 staff in Access Barrie, notwithstanding the procurement bylaw pursuit of pilot until June 2025 with iPolitics to include This Week in Barrie event advertisements in Barrie compressed to promote city programs, services, and report back to finance and responsible governments by March 2025, providing details on the pilot project. And I can speak to them.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. So there was a little bit of concern, and it was brought by the seniors advisory that people were having trouble knowing what's going on in the city and stuff. So we're trying to find a way to have a print form that could be circulated on a need basis to see if we can reach more people and have them connected and engaged with the city. So looking at this, speaking, you know, thank you to all the work that Ms. Reed's team has done and looked at this and just trying to take it as a pilot and see if that we're achieving what we're setting out to do.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Mayor Nuttall.
Sorry, just I saw Miss James Reed. Just maybe is it March or May?
Through you, Chair Kungle, to the mayor. Yeah, I think the deputy mayor just accidentally said March, but I think the intent was to be May. So the idea would be that would be almost a year, and we would report ahead of that as to the success of the pilot, and then council could decide if we end it in June of next year or continue it.
Well, thank God that no one's as nitpicky as I am when I'm chairing the meeting and speaking.
I want to go back to the tape. I don't think it's March. Is this reviewable? Is this a reviewable flag?
Thank you for the clarification. Did you have any other further changes? Okay, do we need to make a change to that or how it's printed? Yes, May, perfect. We've been trying. Next, going to Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Kungle. Through you to staff, I'm just kind of curious, when it comes to this, I know nothing about this iPolitics webpage, but then we just heard some discussion about it being a print media, but then there's no budget attached to this. So I'm a little perplexed. I just assumed this was online, whereas now that we're talking about something printed, I would suspect there's got to be some type of a budget attached to this.
Through you to Councillor Harvey. So the item was a circulation list item that we received correspondence. I had received an email from the iPolitics Barrie Compass this week, and it's on your circulation list. And on that item, it identifies two things: that the proposal that they're having as a startup is to have a weekly electronic newsletter that would go out, and they're going to build their database accordingly. And then once a month, the newsletter would be printed and distributed at city facilities. At I think that I've asked the person a few more questions, and she just got back to me a few minutes ago. City facilities, grocery stores, that kind of thing, so that people could pick them up within the community. And so my thought was that as part of the budget deliberations, as you'll recall, there was $82,000 that was in our communications budget that was allocated previously to This Week in Barrie, which was the page and the Barrie Advance. And during budget deliberations, Councillor Negussi, I think, passed the motion to hold on this and not take that money as a cost savings that we had originally presented through our CAO, and hold on it until council could have a discussion as to what to do in terms of trying to reach people through a print publication. And then it was just referred to Finance Committee, and so we had done nothing though. So that money's still in our budget. So we're not proposing any additional money. I don't know at this time, it's very new, the proposal. I don't know what the cost will be. It could be less than 88,000. I have no idea what the ad rates are. I've asked that. I don't have that answer, and I don't know the size of the printed publication. But the idea would be that if we did it as a pilot, then council could get the results as to the number of people that it's reaching, those kind of things, and then you could decide what you wanted to do with that. So there's no new money that I'm proposing.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, obviously I knew there had to be a dollar item attached to this. It's just, it didn't specify that. So thank you for your response.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Harvey. Any follow-up or other questions that you have? You're good. Okay. Any other members of council in attendance tonight? Okay. So then with that amendment on the floor, I'll call all those in favor of the motion as amended. Okay, that passes. All in favor as the, I guess the overall motion. Okay, so that's carried by all members. We are now moving to 5.2 is held again by Deputy Mayor Thompson. This was the motion 24G118, and this was regarding the site plan application for those three areas. Councillor Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. I'll put the motion on the floor as printed, and I have an amendment. that motion 22G-159 be repealed, and replaced with the following. That staff enter into a section 27 agreement with Junction Group of behalf of their clients, Traditional Senior Housing, the developer, to defer the portion of development charges related to the proposed rental units, excluding the owner units, for a period of 3 years or occupancy, whichever comes sooner, on the development applying for a building permit, of the developer applying for a building permit within 120 days of this agreement. 2, that staff shall set the specific dates in section 27 agreement with the rates to be calculated at June 21, 2021 plus index. 3, that the frozen development charges expire May 15th, 2025, bringing 2 years following the date applicants was approved and conditions were issued nearly 4 years after the original application was made. 4, that for the term of the deferral of the development shall be paid interest to the city on the deferred amount at the rate of 50% of the city's 5-year moving average weighted cost of capital. And 5, that section 27 agreement be extended no later than January 15, 2025 to give the developer 120 days to apply for building permits as noted in paragraph 1 on the motion. And I can speak to that.
Before you do, if I may, is that motion been circulated to members just because it is a bit of a lengthy one? Okay.
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you want to comment before? Sure.
Sorry, through yourself to Deputy Mayor. The building permit has to be pulled by when?
120 days
After,
the agreement is signed.
and why would it take 7 months to sign the agreement?
Can we redirect the question to staff if need be? Okay. Mr. Miller, are you able to respond to that question?
Sorry, the question was
Well, like,
why the timelines?
yeah, why next year, not this year? I guess.
So if they can sign it tomorrow, sign it tomorrow. It's just to give them the frozen DC rates is kind of the important part, I believe, for this development. And those rates expire, they have until May 2025. So the way this motion
Okay,
is
so you're
written,
120 back from that.
it's basically to say
Okay.
the absolute maximum, you have to do it by January. So we're hoping he does it tomorrow, but if they do it in January, that's.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Okay. Thank you. I'll go back to Deputy Mayor Thompson just to speak to the amendment.
So, thank you, Chair. It's basically just, there was a little bit of a variance. They went to the Committee of Adjustments and added some more units. And because you can't have 2 separate DC funding, that I just need to extend the agreement to keep this on track, because it's legislative not to have 2 different DCs. So this is just encompassing the new units and hopefully keeping this moving forward. So, and thank you to Mr. Miller and Ms. Banfield for working on this. There was a little bit of wording and stuff like that. And just, this is probably the cleanest way to do it after working with staff.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other members of committee? Councillor Harvey.
Just a point of clarity, actually. I know we have the amendment sent to us electronically, but verbally, when he was reading section 2, he said June opposed to July. So I just wonder, because it is a verbal amendment, the record should probably reflect accordingly.
calendar?
Point of order, could we give him a break, please?
For the record, we're 27 minutes into a meeting. I think we're going to hold the break, but were you okay? Okay. Thank you for the point of clarification. So just to confirm, is that a July? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Any other questions
You
or
guys better
comments?
not mess anything up tonight, because I'm watching now.
You can't just get anything through this committee. Okay. Any other members of committee that have questions? Okay. Any members of non-committee? All right. So we've got an amendment to the motion on the floor. All in favor? Okay, that carries with committee. All in favor of the overall motion then as amended? I think we've got Councillor Harvey. Are you good on this? Overall motion as, we've approved the amended, so overall motion is amended. Perfect. Okay, so that's carried. We now move on to item 5.3. This was again held by Councillor or Deputy Mayor Thompson. This is regarding motion 24G119 about the Lawn Chair Luminata concert series. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I'll put the motion on the floor as printed, and I have an amendment, and it has no dates in it.
Please proceed.
That the BIA fund 72,834 from their 2023 operating surplus for the BIA's 2024 Lawn Chair Illuminata event, with the remaining funding of 127,169 to be provided by the city, funded from the tourist reserve, and I could speak to that.
Please proceed.
So if members of committee remember, during the budget process, we removed 175,000, I think is the round number, for the extended snowplow service. And that I truly believe that it wasn't really good bang for the buck. And I believe that working with the BIA and the counselor for the area and part of the BIA, Councillor Nixon, they had come up with something to activate the space and, you know, draw down people into the crowds. So we talked about having a festival, and it was actually Councillor Jim Harris that said that he's been to some small towns with some really good music acts, and it's been a really good. And if you remember in the circulation list, it's got a really good economic spin. And I think with all the work that we've been doing in the downtown and showing some support to our businesses, you know, I always say busy streets are safe streets. So that's why I think this is something that we can support.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any questions from members of committee? Non-members of committee? Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Thank you. All in favor is the motion as amended, and we carry on both.
Done.
You're done. Okay, so I've got Mayor Nuttall as holding motion 24G120 regarding Shaq's World. Would you like to put that item on the floor?
I'll put it on the floor, and if you have an amendment, I'll move the amendment for you and then go from there.
Thank you. I have an amendment, and has that been circulated, Wendy, to all members? If not, I am pleased to give you this very long amendment.
You handed me your phone. Who knows I'm going to text right now? So the Shaq's World Association, Shaq's World Community Center be requested to provide the following information to the city to allow for further analysis of their request to bring Shaq's World Community Center under the umbrella of the city budget. Audited financial statements for the past 2 fiscal years of operations, including revenues, expenses, P&L, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows, and if audited statements were never prepared, a review of compilation by an accounting firm with a list of any outstanding liabilities or claims to whom they are owed, documents listing any planned or in progress capital improvements with associated costs and signed agreements that may fully create a future liability, copies of any agreements in place for lease or with local organizations that involve in facility rentals, programs, or activities being offered through Shaq's World Community Center, plus any agreements that create a fiduciary liability, such as an agreement to provide funding support to a third-party organization, copies of any agreements that result in consulting fees being paid and which outline the services being provided, an outline of their operating models that relates to revenue sources such as space and equipment rentals, programs, camps, memberships, etc., staffing complement for Shaq's World Community Center, including reporting relationships, employment status, full-time, part-time, benefits programs in place, that upon receipt of the information outlined in paragraph 1, staff in the Rec and Culture Department initiate discussions with Shaq's World Association, Shaq's World Community Center regarding their proposal and report back to General Committee through the 2025 business plan or staff report.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. And I can speak to that unless you've got further comment.
No, I'll wait till afterwards. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so for context, this was an item that was brought forward from a circulation list. Ward 2, Councillor Nixon had brought it forward to defer it here for consideration. Councillor Nixon, while you're not a voting member, did you want to speak to this at all?
Thank you, Chair Congal. Yes, Yeah, I like most people, especially in Ward 2, think it's, very important that we have some sort of community center for youth downtown. This is an interesting proposal that's been brought to us, but before we go any further with it, there's certain information that I think we need to get all listed in the amendment. And once we have a better idea of the request and the potential fit, then we can certainly make decisions at that point. But yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. So it's my understanding, because it did come through as a request, this does allow us to at least say we've recognized that that has come through, and we're being clear about what would be expected to be able to start any next step conversation, which is a very specific, clear, itemized list of financial information and otherwise business information, and that would then move to staff and then come back if through a report, it sounds like.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Questions through Mayor Nuttall.
Yeah, thanks so much, Madam Chair. So my concern with this is that, I've heard rumblings over the last 12 months that there's actually going to be at some point in our term, there's going to be a proposal brought forward for this address. And I would not want to be in the scenario. So I'm asking for staff to, as they're doing this, to also go and get that information and include it back in any discussion that happens with Shaq's World, because I'm not interested in the city taking over a program for 12 months. It doesn't, like, it's not worth anybody's time. That's not to say that all of the hard efforts that are put in there by the Shaq's World team are not incredible. They are. But as a city, we're looking at everybody using all services at once, in the sense that you look at our other community centers and how they operate. So that to me is something that we need to have answered above and beyond what we're asking for directly from Shaq. And I think if it comes back that yes, there is a redevelopment plan coming, I'm not sure we need any of the information from Shaq. And if it comes back that there isn't one coming, then by all means go down that road. But why waste everybody's time if it's just going to disappear?
Fair enough and well pointed, I think, Mayor Nuttall. So I guess what I'm hearing is that if it passes, the direction to staff would be couched into an identification to Shaq's World to say, at best, there may or may not be parameters on duration that we could consider continuing to occupy that space if there are other plans for it, and whether or not they want to proceed with providing information we would need if they still want to have their request stand.
Yes.
Okay. I'll look to CEO Prowse. Is there any other information you feel you would need, or is the direction clear about, I think, what we've added to the context of the conversation?
Thanks, Chair Congal. I think the information is clear. We'll garner that for committee as well as part of the report back.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, Mayor Nuttall, and then Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, just when we eventually, if there is no redevelopment plan and it comes back, if we can make sure that we're incorporating the scale of this versus what we're usually doing into the conversation. I think, as members of council know, I have also tried very hard to make sure there's recreation services downtown, unsuccessfully to date. And I totally support them, but I wonder about the investment of dollars based on the size of space and the number of people, if it's the right investment. So I just want to make sure that the scale of it would be able to be actually taken in hand without spending a whole lot more dollars per person than we do at the East Bayfield Center, Peggy Hill, or Parkview, because it's another example of a center of ours.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. If any comments are needed, let me know, but otherwise I'll take it as a point of information to staff at CEO Prowse. Do you need anything further?
No, thank you, Chair Congal. We'll cover that in the analysis for committee as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Congal. Just a little bit of clarity from staff just to see if we need to tighten this amendment up a little bit. But under 1, I guess the second last bullet, an outline of their operating model as it relates to revenue sources such as space, equipment rentals, programs, etc. And then it says and camps, memberships, etc. Now, when it comes to memberships, and the only reason I'm asking this is because I've already read an article online where they actually speak to the fact that not all of their youth that are participating at the center are actually from Barrie. So with the memberships, I'm assuming that would be the youth that attend it. Would you also be looking for the numbers as to how many Barrie residents are attending and how many non-Barrie residents are attending?
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. To CEO Prouse, or maybe I can add context if it's helpful. If it is, then maybe I think the intention probably is to get an appreciation of overall usage. So maybe it's a friendly amendment that it's memberships/participants. And I don't think it's specific to area, but I'll look to staff to see if you need that, or if it's good to get maybe a cut of that data being who are they servicing from which areas and what participants are identified to Barrie. Is that what you're looking for, Councillor Harvey? CEO Prouse, would that be able to be something that is within the scope of specifics, or do you need a friendly amendment? But I believe it's all participants, but we'd like to know of those who are from Barrie.
Thank you, Chair Kungle, and Mr. Bell can jump in if he sees fit. It's my understanding is we always do the analysis of Barrie residents versus non-residents as part of our recreation programs. So I would assume that is probably typical information we would garner, but we would look to Shack's World to provide it. Certainly, we don't have a crystal ball if they don't provide that information. Is that good?
Thank you, CEO Prouse. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. And no further questions, but I'll be quite honest with you. I still struggle to support this. When you read the staff report, the center at the exact location operated by the city closed in 2012 for fiscal responsibility related issues. Because out of the $335,000 it was costing to run it, they were only recouping 2% in user fees. I'm quite confident that our community centers elsewhere in the city are not at that type of a ratio. Now, if this was a fully city-run operation, my discussion around this would be totally different. But this would be, I believe, the first time that the city would even be considering providing significant funding, because it sounds like by reading the letter that that was received, that they haven't been able to secure funding to keep their operation going. And I'm not so sure the taxpayers should be the ones to pick up that lag when you're not able to get enough revenue from your user groups, along with sponsors and things like that. The other thing is it really opens the door to all these other community groups who do a lot of good for the city also, whether it's, we've heard from Living Green and the cleanup groups. Not that long ago, we've got umpteen cultural groups around the city that I'm sure would say, hey, if you're giving them money, why aren't you providing funds to us? It really just opens Pandora's box, to be quite honest with you. And I don't know that we have the funds to be able to fund all the user groups that potentially could come knocking at the door. And for that reason, I really struggle to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. And then for context too, just for those watching this evening, so it's not in favor or not right now. It's a recognition. I believe the intention is a recognition that we've been requested. There's been an ask that's come forward for us even to deliberate on it. I think to the points maybe that you have, or others that have yet to speak to it. It's not in favor or not. It's being clear about with even any consideration, we would need certain information back, and that would come through a staff report. And then whether or not that would come through any support for consideration, I think that's a future step. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, just to follow up to that, I can appreciate your point on this, but my view on this is very different. Why have staff spend a lot of time gathering the info is going to be on Shack's World, but the amount of time and detail that goes into these staff reports, that's where I really struggle. Because when this comes forward, I guarantee you I probably will not be able to support it. So why send staff on umpteen hours of reviewing documents, financials, then having to put a staff report together? I wouldn't even want to guess how many hours they're into it, all for something that I just don't anticipate we are going to be able to support around this table for the reasons that I've cited.
Fair, and thank you for clarifying. Any other comments or questions from members of committee? And then non-members of committee? Councillor Rietma?
Thank you, Chair Kungle. I certainly think that Shaq's World at this point is doing some good work. I remember, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago when they were here to ask for startup money. And I believe that Councillor Harris was successful in giving them or arranging for them to get startup money. And when we do this work or staff does this work, I think part of the question that should be asked is, how are you in terms of getting funding from other agencies or, new funding sources for them instead of coming here. The other piece of that, I think I'm very sensitive to what Councillor Harvey has said. And if we are going to go down a route of considering something like this, I think we need to have a program that is open to Living Green, Clean Up Barrie, I don't know, you name it, those kind of groups, so that we can have a rationale for funding them if we're going to fund them. I don't have a vote on this one, but I'm a bit reluctant to move too far with this for sure. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I tend to agree with, I don't have a vote either, so it might be too early at this point, but I agree with Councillor Harvey in terms of the staff time. I find this just an unusual process. Like for me, in reading the staff report too, normally we would follow a procurement process, right? If we were looking at expanding services or taking on a relationship with another party who are going to deliver services on our behalf. So for me, having one organization come forward with this, great idea, and again, I think Shaq's World does phenomenal work, but not being an expert in this space, I have no idea what other community organizations exist that offer sort of youth services. Is this a best service that we need? Is this, the most demand? I have no idea. And so to limit ourselves and task staff with this very narrowed approach, I would be hesitant too. Not that I think there could be, it could be plausible, but I'm not sure why we're just giving all this attention and energy to one organization at this time. And I agree. I think the interpretation of all the data that we've coming back, like what we've asked them for, it's going to require quite a few hours and a staff report. So I'm not sure if we're better off at this point really looking to say, what is the need? What is the gap here that we're trying to fill? And is it youth services? And if it is, well, what type of youth services and where? And do a bit of research on that first before jumping into a partnership of this magnitude. So that would be my 2 cents. Again, not voting. So it will be interesting to see how you vote and whether we spend the time now or stand back and do a bit more due diligence.
So good variety of comments on the floor. Any other considerations? Okay. So I'll call a motion for all in favor as the amendment on the floor. Okay, does not carry.
Could we, if, Madam Chair, if I can have the floor for a second, if that's okay with you, can we then at least make a determination? Because I think received is one thing, but there's going to be more pressure then put on between now and when this comes to general committee. So rather than it just saying from the clerk's perspective, no action was taken, is there an amendment that somebody wants to put out that says that no action be taken? Because that's essentially what we're doing.
Would you like to put an amendment on the floor, Councillor or Mayor Nuttall? Or Councillor Hamilton, do you have a comment as a non-voting member?
I have a comment as a
Yeah,
non-member,
go
if that's okay. Before you do that, because what you're basically saying is put an amendment on the floor that no action be taken. And I just wondered, listening to the comments, no action on this, but I do believe there could be some action needed. And maybe it's, going to the task force and we look at our priorities, but if there really is a gap out there in terms of meeting youth need and demand, specifically within the downtown core, maybe that is a conversation we need to have. So I don't want to lose sight of that. And I don't know where we fit that in.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Mayor Nuttall.
I hear you. I think one of the problems we face is, and it's the same, to me, it's the same conversation as we're having actually that's being brought up by Shack's World, which is not having the resources to do everything all at once. And so, you know, you and I share a ward that's 20 years in the not having a thing. And it's really difficult. The downtown had the YMCA. Unfortunately, that isn't where it was. And I just look, if we step back from this one conversation, we look at the global capital plan, and we then ask staff to go look at how can we provide recreation services going forward. I think we're doing the same thing going that road as the Shack's World road of saying we could potentially take it on. So I haven't seen to date, and maybe others have, I haven't seen to date an opportunity to incorporate recreation downtown that has a user group that's able to provide it. And if others have, then let's have that conversation, but that's where I'm at today.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'll look to the clerk.
Through you, Chair Kungal, to members of the committee, when we're saying that no further action be taken, it's no further action on this particular request. It doesn't mean any more further action on staff, like bringing motions forward on potentially looking at more recreation opportunities in the downtown. It just basically is for this specific request that no further action be taken. Just for some clarity.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Maybe not fair to staff at this time, but if staff do have a current opinion, if I may look to Dan Bell, is there an analysis that comes forward in part of the year? I know you've spoken to demand for recreation services and location, but is there anything that might be in hand for us to appreciate if we continue to have a conversation about what the needs are and what we're able to facilitate versus wait lists for service, and who are other partners supporting some of the access to recreation facilities?
To you, Chair Kungal, the recent staff reports, the recent studies that have been done and updated from 2017 and 2019 indicate there's a shortfall of facilities for recreation that encompass things such as arenas, gymnasiums, swimming pools, those kinds of things, which would be included in, say, a form of a community center or recreation center of that sort, as opposed to just one specific aspect of it, which in Shack's World's case, from my understanding, is a gymnasium within which programming and primarily basketball is offered.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I'll look to other members of committee if you want to put any other amendments on the floor or direction to staff, or I think it's good conversation, then a takeaway to say, you know, what do we hear from community? What are the needs? But one piece that I don't think we've addressed but has come up that was baked into that amendment was wanting to at least know what the plan for that space is. And I think that might still be good information for us to have on hand. And if that can come back as a point of information at some point in time. CEO Prowse, would that be something that could just come back to committee as a whole as a point of information for if there are future plans for space downtown that are currently being used for recreation services by Shack's World?
Through you, Chair Kungal, to committee, committee would be made, council would be made aware of any development application. Prior to that, it would be, I don't want to call it speculation, but it certainly would not be a firm plan for that site. So I've heard of alternative uses for that site. I haven't seen a development application, but certainly Ms. Banfield would circulate to council, when we actually get a development application. Prior to that, if it was your wish, we'd update you on what we hear, so to speak.
Thank you, CEO Prowse. Councilor Morales.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Kungal. I wasn't going to say much, and I don't know if this point has already been said. For anybody watching that's maybe disappointed with the direction it appears this is going, it's not necessarily a bad outcome. On previous councils, we used to have very adjunct requests for money for arch programs. So it was one here, one there. And eventually we now have a process, as everybody knows, where it's a streamlined application process and it's very transparent, it's very centralized and effective. So just because there's possibly a no tonight, as everyone has already said, and I don't need to say again, there might be a conversation about developing a process. We did that with arts. I saw how messy it used to be, and then I saw the outcome. So that might also happen with similar programming such as this.
Thank you, Councillor Morales. So I think on that note, I'm not sure, Councillor Nixon, if you have what you need, if you're getting questions back from Shaq's World, or if we can support you in any ways. But overall, we've had a request come in. It was deferred for us to consider it. We've had deliberation on it, but we are not moving forward with engaging Shaq in any type of formal conversation about further information to consider funding at this time. Otherwise, we'll look to see if they have any follow-up with you, Councillor Nixon, or is there anything that you need from committee at this time?
Thank you. No, I do not, but thank you. And yeah, no, that's fine.
So I think that closes the conversation on that item. We had Councillor Rietma.
It does close the conversation, but it does raise another question in my mind. And that is, in the downtown, that area is the area where we're going to see the very highest densities of people living in a geographic area. And I'm just wondering if our recreation staff have looked at when the downtown is built out, whenever that would be, what kind of recreation facilities will we be needing there? Because maybe we should be putting something in place early on, reserving some space or building some space or doing something. I mean, we do have the waterfront, but we'll probably need sort of social spaces like what Shaq's World is using now, and other spaces for other community type uses. So are we looking at that at this point, or should we be looking at that? Maybe Mr. Bell might want to try to answer that.
Thank you, Councillor Rietma, and through you, Mr. Bell. If you feel like you can answer that at this point in time, but then I think we'll move that maybe to how does that come back to an agenda item for broader conversation or consideration, Mr. Bell?
Certainly, through you, Chair Congo, to Councillor Rietma. No, the department itself has not looked at a recreation center type facility in the downtown core. The capital plan has the recreation center scheduled for the Hewitt's Salem land areas, and that's the next capital project that's planned right now.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Councillor Rietma, any follow-up? You're good?
I'll take it offline.
Okay. Thank you. So I think that closes the topics on the agenda for this evening for the most part. Okay. So could I have, may I have, we'll vote on receiving the correspondence with no further action. All in favor? That carries by committee. Okay. No, we have no items for discussion. So this concludes the Finance and Responsible Governance Committee meeting, and I call this meeting adjourned at 4:56 p.m. I believe we go into a general committee meeting and then affordability